important, especially in the recent times as well, because the importance of mental health is slowly being understood amongst the people now. So we'll be starting in a few minutes. We're just waiting for everybody to just join in.
Sure, I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's our pleasure, ma'am. So today, me and Arushi, we will be moderating this session. If you guys have any doubts, please let us know it in the chat box, and we will take it up once ma'am's and Dr. Javeria's speech topic is over, presentation is over, and we will take all the questions one by one. And yes, I hope we all have an amazing time and learn a lot. Arushi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, am I audible, Mahima?
Yes, you are.
Hello, good evening to all present today. I am Arushi and I would be moderating the session along with Mahima today. And I hope that everybody enjoys it. And this is a very informative panel discussion for everybody. Thank you, Dr. Sapna, for joining us today. And we are very happy to have you. And as soon as everybody has joined, we will start, as Mahima just mentioned, we will start with the panel discussion.
How many people are we expecting?
Ma'am, right now there are 36 with us, so maybe a few more.
Okay.
In psychiatry from Mumbai, India, prior to going to UK for specialization. She was awarded her membership of the Royal College of Psychiatrists in 2009, following which she completed her certification in child and adolescent psychiatry. Dr. Sapna has over 15 years of experience working as a psychiatrist with the children and young people and has a special area of interest in neurodevelopment disorders such as autism and ADHD, eating disorders, and emotional problems, including self harm and suicide in young people. She believes that every client is unique and should be treated as such while making treatment plans working on their individual strengths and weaknesses. She has numerous publications in research journals. We are so glad to have you today with us, ma'am. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Dr. Javeria as a panelist. So Dr. Javeria is currently working as an intern house officer at Dubai Health Authority. She graduated from Dubai Medical College in 2020. Dr. Javeria is keen in the field of medicine and research. She has authored various articles on different rare diseases to serve the medical fraternity. She believes in sharing knowledge as the first step to humanity. Welcome, Dr. Javeria. We are very glad to have you today.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here, and inshallah will make a difference.
Sure, ma'am. Ma'am, you can start the presentation and that's your talk.
So do you want me to start? You want Dr. Javeria to start?
Ma'am, anything is fine.
Dr. Javeria?
Yes, ma'am, you can start if you want to. It's fine.
Okay. So I'm just I have a presentation, so should I just share my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you all see this?
Yes, ma'am, you can see.
So I'm here today to talk about, it's the World Suicide Prevention Day. So we are going to be talking a little bit about suicide and how I think we can try to prevent it. Because I think what hits us all when we hear about a young person taking their life or anyone taking their life is how it could have, we could have changed it, or someone, someone should have done something about it, and about how it's such a waste of someone's life. And the first thing is, if only, like, someone would have spoken to that person, if only that person had reached out. So there are lots of regrets that remain with people who are around the the person that we lose. So I think today I just wanted to touch upon how everyone can do something about it. So I'm not going to go into lots of details, but just a little bit of details about what we should be looking for in people. Some statistics, I think suicide is the second leading cause of death among youth. And when I read that, I was quite taken aback that in the age group of 15 to 24, to think that, after road trafficular accidents, if suicide is something that we are losing our young kids to, that there is definitely something that we can all do to stop it. And this is according to the World Health Organization data. Amongst young people, rates of suicidal thoughts, plans, and attempts all increased significantly, almost doubled from 2008 to 2017. I think we recently hear lots of people talking about suicide or thinking about suicide. It's all over the media. And there were some questions about, is it more because we are reporting about it and talking about it more? But like, the research shows that there's an actual palpable increase in the rates of suicide from 2008 to now, and now during the COVID time it has almost doubled again, according to the research data. In India itself, an estimated 35.5 people in every 100,000 population lose their life to suicide. That is a huge statistic if you go to think about it. And there is a misconception. I think one of the questions, you all just send me a survey about, that was done prior to this. Where should we be talking about suicide, or should we be talking about self-harm to people, and does that increase? But that is a misconception. There is a misconception that discussion about suicide or talking about it makes young people or kids, that you give ideas to them, that even if they're not thinking about it, if you ask them, it's putting an idea into their head. But that is a misconception. And in young people especially, it can be very complicated because, some of the ideas are, this is attention seeking, this is just a phase, it will pass away, it's hormones acting up. So lots of parents just don't pay the kind of attention that needs to be given when children talk about these things or young people talk about it, because teenagers are supposed to be moody. Teenagers are supposed to be isolating themselves. Teenagers are irritable generally, and that is why parents just think, oh, come on, this is just a phase, I'm sure it'll pass. How has COVID contributed? There is, we all know that there is a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of anxiety, there are every day, I think, in the papers, at least in India, we are looking at people losing their lives, not just for medical reasons, but because of mental health reasons. So why is there so much of palpable mental health issues? Now they're calling it a mental health crisis in India, which has gone unnoticed, but now the COVID has got it to the fore. So why? Because I think, there is a lot of uncertainty about the future, which COVID has just brought about. We don't know. Before, we had a nice fixed routine. We used to go to work, we used to go to colleges, we used to go to schools, and then we used to come home, spend time with our family. And suddenly it's all gone to, God knows what. I knew exactly what I was probably going to be doing in 6 months' time. But now I'm taking it one day at a time, or probably even 1 week at a time, because I don't know when I'm going to go back to work. I don't know when the local trains are starting. There is so much of uncertainty around. There is so much of stress, financial stress, unemployment, housing. Everybody's worried about things. So, and unfortunately, it has hit all strata of society. What probably people are, we all have heard about the migrant crisis. We all have heard about how people are losing things. But it has also hit equally hard the higher strata of society, where you're used to a certain kind of lifestyle, and because of this you have to cut down on things, and people are just not used to it. You're worrying about your own health and worrying about the health of family members. So if you have elderly parents or parents with medical conditions, you're worrying about that. What if is acting on everyone's mind? What if they get COVID? What if they have to be hospitalized? What if they have to be quarantined? What happens? If you're older, then you're worrying about your children, if they are, living away from you all. So I'm sure your parents are all worried about you all. There is a clear lack of support. We are also, engraved in ourselves that we find very little time to be empathetic towards other people. Like, your own life is so busy at the moment thinking about everything, that people are not there when you want them to support each other. We are not meeting people face to face, so everyone is facing that kind of isolation. You're spending time with probably only 3 or 4 people who are your immediate family, so that acutely. And when it started, it was still okay, but I think now, as the lockdown has extended, at least in India, it is very much like, people are feeling the brunt of feeling trapped, feeling stuck, not being able to go out. Is now, we have passed the acute phase, and now in the chronic phase, all the depressive elements are coming out. Sorry. So what are the warning signs? What are signs that we should all be looking for? Either, we need to reflect back and think about, are we going through any kind of stress, anxiety, depression? I think some of you might be there, but I recently did a talk for MBBS students, and I was shocked with the survey that came out. It said nearly 40% of that cohort had at some point in the last 2 weeks, thought about, about how their life is not worth living. So when we are looking, we don't suspect that that kind of statistics to be thrown at us, but every time it does shock us. It does, shake us a little bit about. So you never know who's going through a crisis. So what are the warning signs to look out for? So changes in behavior, changes in sleeping habits, and it could be that, if you notice anyone in your family, or you notice yourself to be sleeping too much or too little. So it's not just not sleeping at night, but it could also be spending your whole day in bed. It's insomnia and not being able to sleep, worrying in the night, or waking up. So constantly waking up, not being able to complete your sleep cycle. Changes in eating habits, so eating too much or eating too little. There is a lot of emotional eating that is happening at the moment because people are worried, bored. There are lots of memes, there are a lot of jokes going around about how people are not going to be able to fit into their clothes after the lockdown. But I think it all adds to that, because a lot of people are doing it as an emotional coping mechanism. Withdrawing from family and friends, so not keeping in touch with people, not physically we are not meeting people, but even virtually, or not just picking up the phone and talking to people, locking yourselves in rooms, and not even coming out of your rooms to meet your family members. Somatic complaints, so which is constantly, it's not once in a while that you're having these complaints, but it is constant. So having headaches, having stomach aches, having any kind of aches and pains, feeling tired, that will not be expected in this situation, or there is no reason for it to happen. Changes in mood. In younger people, what comes across is irritability. So it's not the classic, when we talk about depression, the first thing that comes to our mind is, people who are sad. But in younger people, what comes across is they become extremely irritable. They start fighting more. They snap at people. They become, very not pleasant people to be around. And because of that, they further isolate themselves because people don't want to be around them. But to keep in mind that in younger people, it might not come across as a classic sad mood, but it might be that, it can come across as irritable mood. Feeling hopeless, feeling like, there is nothing that can be done about this situation. There is nothing, this is it. This is my life. Nothing is going to change ever. And losing all hope. So I see a lot of people, younger people now who are coming, to me and saying that previously I wanted to be a lawyer. Previously I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. Previously I wanted to become a psychologist. And now I don't know what I'm going to be doing. The plans have just disappeared. I'm just feeling, I'm feeling really hopeless about this. Young people often get into antisocial behavior to take care of their mood. So they start, they start smoking up, they start drinking, they start doing reckless things. So for example, at the moment, there are lots of people who are going out without mask, and younger people going out without mask, or not bothering about, their self-care, not bothering about their own safety. So sometimes the underlying cause could be, emotional issues. Changes in school and college, drop in academic performance. So an A-star student or someone who's been scoring in their 90s suddenly starts failing their subjects. That is a red herring. Somebody who's not bothered about, as much, somebody who was really diligent about completing their work on time, handing over their work on time, is not bothered anymore. They're not interested in that. They're refusing to attend classes. They're not doing anything extracurricular as well. So it is like, they have given up on their hobbies, they're given up playing sports, anything else, music, any hobbies that they have, they're just not indulging in that. And change in self-care. So not, being bothered to dress up in the morning, not taking, what's the point in taking a bath? Anyways, I'm sitting at home. What's the point in getting dressed? Lots of people are spending, time in their pajamas at the moment because it's like, who's going to see me anyway? Preoccupation with death. This is a big one. So, constantly looking up about on the internet or reading up about ways to end their life. Statements about dying. What difference will it make, if I'm not here tomorrow? What will happen, those kind of things. If they start mentioning about little things, giving things away. So things that they held dear to themselves, if I'm not here, this is yours. Okay, you take my so and so. I recently had a child who, just took off all their clothes from the wardrobe, packed them in cartons, and said, give this to an orphanage once I'm not here. And parents were really worried about it. So things like that, they start doing things like that. Drawing or writing about death or suicide. So this constant preoccupation, they're constantly thinking, and that is coming out in the way they are talking about it, or, in things that they do in their behavior. So what are the risk factors? Risk factors are if anyone has had a previous suicide attempt, irrespective of, how serious it is. It could be as simple as somebody taking a compass and scratching their hand. That is still self-harm. So if they have done something to harm themselves in the past, if they've had a recent experience of loss, so it could be a death of a loved one, it could be, loss of a relationship, it could be any kind of loss that they have recently had. If they've had chronic bullying, which is, which acts on your self-esteem, as we all know. Family history of suicide or suicidal attempts. So if anybody has had someone in their family who they have lost due to suicide, any kind of violence that they have witnessed or experienced themselves, access to means of suicide. They say doctors are the most likely to lethally kill themselves because, we all have easy access to means to kill ourselves. But it depends on, how much access you have. So if you have somebody who's staying in a high-rise building and they're thinking about suicide, you're doubly worried because, you know that they can just jump out if they want to. Impulsivity, they have in the past done lots of impulsive things, even if sometimes they don't mean to, they could do it on the spur of the moment. if they feel acute rejection, so somebody, they've had a breakup of a relationship, or some friend has said something really, really hurtful to them, and they take that sense, or even parents saying something that to their children, and the child taking it, or taking it as an acute kind of sense of rejection. Feeling hopeless, we've already talked about. Feeling like a burden, feeling that, I don't make any difference to this world. My being or not being, actually, it's more of a hindrance for my parents. My parents will be better off without me. Or any kind of suicidal ideation. So I wanted to divide this into what we can do if we are, any of us are feeling acutely rejected, any of us are having, suicidal thoughts. So A, what we can do for ourselves, and B, a little bit of what you could do if you come across somebody who's having suicidal thoughts. So the first bit was, what can you do as part of self-care? So when the world is turning topsy-turvy, and the world, we don't know, we've lost all sense of control, we've lost all sense of reality in this COVID situation, there is always a little bit of life that you can control. And this is what we are going to talk about is, you can still do A, B, and C to look after yourself. So what can you do? You can still eat healthily, you can still eat on time, take proper, dinner breaks, lunch breaks, sleep appropriately. So, sleep on time, exercise regularly. So, lots of people ask me, but we don't have the time to do all of this. And I'm like, no, it's about how you schedule your day. I'm not asking you to exercise for an hour, but even if you do 15 minutes of exercise in the day, that is enough. Even if you take 10 minutes of a break for your lunch, sit down properly on the dining table and have lunch, you will realize that it just gives you a break from things. It just adds to the, you feel refreshed. You then feel like, a sense of calmness coming through you. So all these little things play a big part. And as I said, we all need to follow that. Having a routine. Routine is very important, I think, because for example, I have a whiteboard on my in my room, and I write every day what I'm doing the next day, because it gives me the sense of control that I know what I'm doing the next day. I feel like, that I know exactly what my day is going to look like. Obviously, it can change, but at least in my head, I feel I'm in control about my day-to-day thing. Keep it as close to possible to your routine that was previously before the COVID situation. So if you're waking up at a certain time, at least during the weekdays, it could be like, I'm waking up at this time, then I'm doing this, so if you're following a certain kind of routine, that predictability helps as well. Avoid excessive caffeine, alcohol, or illicit substances. We all know that, alcohol is a depressant. We all know caffeine causes anxiety. Any kind of illicit substances are, in the immediately they will probably cause euphoria, but in the long term, they are all depressants. Compete with yourself and not others. Lots of people are comparing their situation with other people and feeling that they are lacking. But a big thing is, look at yourself, because the shoes that you're wearing, somebody else, they are not in the same shoes as you are. They might not be facing the same stressors as you are. So your competition is only with yourself and no one but yourself. Be kind to yourself. It's fine to feel, it's fine to feel a little bit low. It's fine to feel nervous. It's fine to feel overwhelmed. Do not expect yourself to be superheroes. None of us are. So, look at the positives, and I'm sure all of us do have positives. So look at the positive side of things and do not be too harsh on yourself. I think laughter. I recommend comedy shows to lots of people at the moment. I don't want to see reality shows in terms of grim reality of life. At the moment, COVID is already showing us a reality in life. I don't want to see any more on media. So, something that lightens up your mood. Laughter is a great way. It has a scientific basis because it releases endorphins, which are happy hormones. So the more you laugh, the more you smile, the happier, even if externally you smile and laugh, even for a little bit, it makes you feel much lighter. Practice yoga, meditation, or mindfulness any of these is fine. So when I was talking about exercise, it need not be, you know, the cardio exercises that we are talking about. It could be as simple as, like, you know, just sitting in the balcony and meditating and taking the sunshine for 10 minutes, and that is fine. Avoid excessive news coverage. You know, there is, you can see the news probably once or twice in a day, but constant, that kind of negativity constantly, because the news currently is full of, you know, somebody dying somewhere, how the hospitals are full of people, how the COVID cases are increasing, how the government is not able to manage the situation. All of that is just as adding to the anxiety. And if you're constantly looking at it, I'm sure constantly the negativity is coming to your life. So just shut it off. Just, you, like, you know, you can keep abreast of the situation. It doesn't change, and believe me, it doesn't change from time to time. If there is something really important, you will get it as a news feed. I'm sure we are all a part of numerous groups. Somewhere it will come, but we need not actively go looking for the news. Responsible use of social media. I think social media has given a right for people to be unkind to other people. We see that, you know, but you never know the impact that it has on other people. You might have strong opinions, but before you shoot out something, just be careful to, you know, break for a moment. Think about, you know, if I say something, how will that other person feel about it? So, you know, responsible use of social media. Social media at the moment, as I said, it's full of vitriol. It's full of, you know, filth that people are throwing at each other. So just be careful about, you know, how you keep yourself safe, and probably are more empathetic about what you put so that other people don't get hurt as well. Communicate, a big thing. Communicate with others. Let them know, for example, if you're feeling sad, or you've had a really bad day, or, you know, you're feeling like, I just can't cope at the moment, I have too much to do, I'm just feeling too overwhelmed, I feel like I've lost control. Just sit back and talk to, you know, talk to your friends, talk to your parents, talk to your teacher, talk to anyone that you trust, to say, hey, I've had a really bad day. And don't keep it within yourself, because that is important. Stay connected, even if it's virtual. Stay connected with people. Have virtual family meetings. It's a great way of connecting with people. It's a great way of, you know, have virtual meetings with your friends so that you don't lose touch with them. And it is a great stress buster. Maintain a gratitude journal, because at times when we feel that, you know, my life is really less fortunate than us might not have, is a great way. And those can be simple things, that I don't have to worry about the food that comes on my table. I have a family, I have a roof, you know, I have a roof on top of my head. I don't have to worry about that. It could be as simple as that. I have, you know, I have a mom who really cares for me. I have, you know, a dad who works really hard for me. I have a sibling whom I can have fights with. So simple things like that. If you look for things that you can be thankful about, even if it is like, you know, 5 things in a day, I'm sure we can all find things that we all have in our lives that we can be thankful about. And it just changes our perspective about how we look at things. Acknowledge your feelings. Feelings play a great role, and feelings need to be expressed. They can't be kept inside. It's okay. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to feel confused. It's okay to cry. And because we are humans, so we are supposed to be having feelings. We can't be robots. And once you have those feelings, acknowledge them and express them out. So if you're angry at somebody, go and tell them, you know, what you did, I was really, really angry with what you did. You really disappointed me. And then you can talk it out rather than keep it. You know, we all have, what I say, a finite amount of coping strategies and emotions. And every once in a while, you have to let your emotions go. Otherwise, your jar of emotions is going to burst, and it's going to come out in a way that is going to be unhealthy. Use creative arts to express your feelings. Sometimes people find it really difficult. You know, those who are introverts, for example, might not be able to express their feelings to somebody. They might not be able to go and actually tell that person that, you know, hey, look, you made me angry, or, you know, you made me sad. And they find that really difficult, especially, as I was saying, introverts who are not so used to talking to people. but then express your feelings in ways that you're comfortable. So writing it in a journal, just writing that how your day was and how it made you feel, that I had a submission to do, I didn't do it, my teacher was really angry at me, and I felt really sad after that. Or drawing or painting, just because those are creative ways of letting go of your emotions. Just indulge in anything that helps you let go of your feelings of hurt and disappointment. Developing new hobbies or revisiting old. If you're on any of the Facebook, Twitter, you can see lots of people putting up, they have revisited baking, they've revisited art, they've started painting after a long time. Lots of people are saying, I had forgotten what it is like to write poetry. I used to write it when I was really little or young, and now I'm doing it again. So, spend your time in creative ways, because all that gives you pleasure, and that gives you, is a natural relaxant. Contribute to a social cause. And social cause could be anything. Helping somebody who is in a need of your help, because that gives you, a feeling of well-being as well. So helping somebody elderly in your building to get groceries, helping somebody else, you can just say that I'm there for you. Anything that you can find to be helpful towards others, to be kind towards others, will also fill your own jar of positivity. Writing thank you notes. I think we don't say that very often to people. Hey, thank you for being my friend. Thank you for, doing something that was really nice and kind of you to do. Thank you, for just being a listening ear to me. Just, maybe just writing a thank you note that you've not written for a long time to people, because that will make them happy. That will make you feel very satisfied as well. It also gives us a sense of purpose. So if you're doing something for someone else, you feel, actually, that is, I need to be here because that person needs me. The feeling of being needed is a great motivator to bring about a positive mood. Keeping things in perspective. What are things in my control? Sometimes it is, who knows, this world is going to end, the COVID, everyone is going to die. Sometimes what happens is there is a lot of negativity. You start thinking in a very irrational way. What's the point in making plans for the future? I know, this is never going to end. So just sometimes just sitting back, reflecting on, there are things in my control. What can I do? I know, I don't know when the local transport is going to start, but I know for a fact that what I can do in my life that I have under control. Am I overestimating the likelihood of the worst case scenario when I'm saying that, COVID is never going to, this is never going to change? Recently, for example, there was a case where a guy was tested, and before he even came to know the result of the test, he jumped out and killed himself. And, his test came out negative. So the point was, at that point when he just was having some symptoms and went for a COVID test, he thought that is the end of his life, because if he turned positive, and he assumed that he was going to turn positive, and that is why he, killed himself. And you're like, why? It was such a waste. Why didn't he just wait for the results if that was what was worrying him? So are you overestimating the likelihood of the worst case scenario? Thinking about what helped in the past. So if you're feeling bad, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling worried, what was it in the past that helped me? And revisiting that. So did talking to someone help? Okay, then I'm going to talk to someone. Did, doing something help? Did reading help? Did cooking help? And everyone has different stress busters. So whatever helped for you in the past, just go and revisit it again. And the second bit I was talking about is if you come across somebody or you're worried about somebody, it could be a friend, it could be somebody, some relative, it could be somebody that you just, sometimes you feel in your heart, I just feel that something is not right with this person. And or somebody actually confided in you that they're feeling really sad and they're feeling suicidal. What do you do as a person? The main thing is just giving a listening ear. I think we don't pay that much attention to that. It is about, just non-judgmentally listening to someone, because sometimes all that person needs is to have somebody listen to them sympathetically and not, disregard their feelings or invalidate their feelings, because sometimes it is like, don't be stupid, don't talk rubbish. Like, if someone tells you I'm really feeling like my life is not worth living, and there is somebody else who comes and tells you, shut up, you're talking rubbish, or you're doing this just for attention, or your life is so great, why would you even think about it? Like, how stupid can you be? And that is invalidating that person's feelings. So sometimes all that they need is, okay, hear me out. I want to just let you know how I'm feeling, and just expressing myself. Somebody just listening to them makes them feel better. Ask them about if you're worried about somebody, if you've seen them talking about, or you've heard them talking about suicide, just ask them openly. There is nothing, there is no better way of dealing with this. As I mentioned previously, that it is a misconception that, if you ask somebody about suicide, you're putting thoughts in their mind. No, it is actually putting it out in the open. And if they have those thoughts, they'll feel relieved that someone has asked them about it. Let them know that you care and you're available. Just let them, just sometimes just saying, hey, you can call me whenever you want, I'll be there. Those kind of statements. Don't worry, I've got your back. So something like that, just to let them know that you are, that there is somebody who cares if they're here or not here tomorrow. Helps them. Do not joke about their thoughts or feelings. Sometimes what happens is, especially when we are worried about something, we resort to humor. And it's not that we want to be insensitive, but you just want to lighten up the situation. And you might, crack an insensitive joke, which might not be helpful. Encourage them to talk to their family. I think I get asked a lot of questions about, if somebody confides in us and tells us not to tell their family, what do we do? It's better to be safe than be sorry. So if they have told you in sincerity that they're thinking about killing themselves, or they're having suicidal thoughts, you need all the resources. If you're not living with that person, it is the person who's living with them that needs to know about it. Because if you want somebody to be taken care of, it's fine. They feel, let that young person or that person know, hey, look, I am really worried about you, but I'm going to talk to you. And because of that, I'm not breaking your trust. I'm not going behind your back and telling your parents, but I'm telling your parents because, I'll help you. If you want to tell your parents, I'll help you tell your parents, or we can do it together. I'll be there for you when you're talking to your parents, but we need to tell your parents. And signpost them to a professional. So that is the next best thing that you could do, because it is, if they are thinking about suicide, then, it's a lifesaver. They might, you will have saved a life if you let them know, give them the direction to go to a professional, because professional help is something that they need. So I think that was it from my end. There are lots of helplines that are available. I have just put on the helpline. It is a free helpline that Empower runs along with the Municipal Corporation of Mumbai. It's 24/7. But as I said, other than Empower, there are lots of other helplines as well that you can talk to people. Confidentiality is well maintained. You can just pick up the phone if anyone needs it and talk to a professional at the other side of the line and let them know how you're feeling to seek help. We also run a support group for young people who are going through anxiety and depression, because sometimes, as I said, talking to people who are going through it also helps, because it is like, okay, this is what helped in your case. You get ideas from others. You see people recover. So sometimes it is talking to people who are almost in the same boat that helps people, recover better. Thank you. And I'm happy to take any questions, but I think that will be towards the end. So that's it from my end.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sapna. That was a very nice and very informative presentation.
Thank you.
Dr. Javaria, the floor is yours.
Yes, can I share the screen?
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Sapna, for your insightful presentation. We learned a lot. So let's get started. So we're basically talking about working together to prevent suicide. So I'm going to mention something about what is suicide, how to suspect a victim, pandemic and suicide, how to prevent suicide. So suicide is death caused by injuring oneself with the intent to die. Now, a lot of people commit suicide and some do attempt suicide. Both the things need to be taken seriously. Suicide attempt is when someone harms themselves with the intent to end their life, but they do not die as a result of their actions. But definitely with proper counseling, we need to prevent both. Close to 800,000 people die due to suicide every year, which is one person every 40 seconds. So that's a huge number. Now, how do we suspect the victim? The American Association of Suicidology developed a mnemonic, is path warm. So it's easy to remember in order to identify the warning signs. So there's the first one, I, it stands for ideation. So these patients, they mostly talk about threatening to harm or kill oneself. They talk about death, they write about that. They always talk about basically any methods which can lead to death. So that's where you can get the clue. Then substance abuse. Now these patients mostly they are in a lot of difficulties probably, so they want to escape from that. So that's one reason why people commit suicide, right? So there are many drugs available which gives them a false sense of pleasure and they're just addicted to them and they abuse these substances. So then we have purposelessness, which means they just feel that they're of no use. So there's no use living, basically. Anxiety, it's very common. It's common among everyone, actually, irrespective of having thoughts of suicide or not. Even we become anxious sometimes. But when it comes to affect your daily activities, you're having problems with your sleep pattern, and it goes so bad that you're always worrying about things, and then you think that is the best solution, that's when you really need to seek help. Now, sometimes you feel that you're trapped and there's no way out, so do seek help at that time.
Dr. Javaria, I'm very sorry to disturb. The slide which you are talking about is not visible on the screen.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Okay, what can you see on the screen? Because I'm just, it's
the
right.
First slide with the 4 questions. What is suicide? How to suspect a victim?
You can't see it?
Yeah, we can just see the first slide.
Okay. I'll try sharing again. Still, it's the same thing?
Yeah, now we can see the first slide again.
Okay, but see the first slide.
You can't see the other sides while I'm moving?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, then in that case, I can talk. It's fine, right? Hopefully.
Yes, ma'am. Anything is okay.
Okay, great. All right. So we were, HEP stands for hopelessness. So is path warm. We're just following that mnemonic now. So the H, it stands for hopelessness. So there's basically no hope of any positivity in your life. So then comes W, which is withdrawal from friends, family, and society. Now, this can be either because you're feeling just not worthy to be around people, or you just want to be isolated. Anger, this is a very dangerous emotion. Anger, it can destroy a lot of things. And usually these patients, they are either quiet, or if you talk to them about something, they're very furious. So that's one thing. Recklessness, they're really careless about things, and they do come across a lot of mood changes. So that is about recognizing the warning signs. Now, in this pandemic, let me tell you that the pandemic will cause distress and leave many people vulnerable to mental health problems and suicidal behavior. So now, what leads to suicide during the pandemic? Now, you see there are a lot of problems going on. There's loss of employment. So people go through financial stressors. So ultimately, they think the best choice for them is death, and that's what leads to committing suicide. Healthcare system as well, even though they are aware about all these things, but once you are in the trap, you're there, you need to seek help. Because of the increased workload, they get, the job gets difficult. So that's why, again, that's one of the reasons of committing suicide. Then media reports, as Dr. Sapna already mentioned, media reports can be very harmful. So the media really needs to be very careful with what they are reporting. So even if they're reporting about the news related to suicide, how many people committed suicide, etc., related to this, sometimes the similar person can face the similar problem, and probably they will end up thinking that the best solution is what the other person committed suicide. So it's basically very influential. So also with the lockdown system here, in fact, everywhere now there's a lockdown going on. So what happens is there's increased alcohol consumption. People are staying at home. There are increased rates of domestic violence. So this also results in suicide. The important point I would like to mention is the stigma towards individuals with COVID-19 and their families. Now, even if in your neighborhood, if you find people with COVID-19, you're going to isolate them. And of course, we need to isolate them to prevent the spread of the infection. But at the same time, make sure that, you ask them, maybe through online platforms, you can ask them if they're doing well, if they need anything, if they have all the supplies at home. So let them know that you care about them. Okay, because they didn't get nobody wants to get the disease, right? So they just are unfortunate in that case. Depression can lead to suicide. Also, what's going on now is the interrupted education. Like even for me, during my final exam, which I had in March, so it was, we had it online basically. So what happened, not in March, in June it got postponed, yeah. So we were very anxious about how the exams would go on. We were anxious about what our careers are going to be. The future life is, it was a difficult decision at that time for everyone, even to start online platform, because everything was so new. But again, so the online system has helped a lot in conveying a lot of messages, also continuing education. So in fact, I have given all my exams online, and in some colleges, the graduation also happened online. Then talking about self-isolation, physical distancing also can lead to suicide, because we are so used to socializing, and now suddenly that has stopped. So it all leads to suicide. Thoughts of suicide. Now, how to prevent this? At individual basis, what you can do is, if you are worried about something, speak up. Okay, now it's common for us to be worried about a lot of things, but when things are out of your hand, you just can't help it, then let people around you know that you're worried about something, because there will be someone you can find who's going to help you out. Seek for help and assistance. You can visit a doctor in the hospital or the clinic. The family doctors are usually screening. So during the clinic hours, we always screen patients. We always ask them these questions: how are they feeling today? And if they have lost interest in those activities which they used to do before. So, and then we counsel them about how they can improve their lifestyle, exercise, and basically initially you start with lifestyle modifications. So visit the doctor, and nowadays, in fact, exercise is prescribed, because when you tell patients go exercise, they don't really exercise, because you don't really know the importance of exercising, right? So even if you need to exercise 30 minutes, you can divide it in 3 times a day, just like, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can do 10 minutes, maybe at your breakfast time, lunch, and dinner, and in the end, you're done with your 30 minutes. So exercise is now given as prescription, then only the patients will follow. So make sure once you go to the doctor, follow up with the treatment. Don't just go and come back and follow up with your same routine. You need to follow up with the treatment, okay? And then moving on to how people around you can help. So every time you're really confused, most of the time you're confused when we ask, how do we approach? So just ask them, I've been feeling concerned about you lately. Or tell them, I wanted to check in with you because you haven't seen yourself lately. And they will be open to you. Just let them know that you care. Don't just ask them for the sake of getting the information and then probably you're not going to do anything about it. Just don't try to be nosy, but let them know that there's someone who cares. So be sympathetic. Whatever their answers are may not match your opinions, may be right or wrong. At that time, it's not the time to decide whether something is right or wrong because it's all about opinions in the end, right? And opinions are not right or wrong. And you're not supposed to be judgmental at that time. So offer them hope, and you need to ask about the plans of suicide, how they are trying to commit suicide. So if they give you clues of, they're interested in using the pills or, overdosing themselves with pills or using knives, firearms. So make sure if you're with them, remove all the potential means of suicide. Continue your support and get professional help. So you can call a crisis line for advice, or you can actually encourage them to go seek help. When they let you know about their problems, do not act shocked, because that's the worst thing when you actually have a very shocking experience. If you think, how can you do it? If you think he's or she is a blessed soul and they're not supposed to do something like that, but it's a very judgmental reaction. So you're supposed to avoid that. So do not promise confidentiality because it's just not, it can't happen that way. When patients are going to commit suicide. So it's just so dangerous to them as well as to the others. So you need to inform the authorities or any, the people concerned. So you can't promise confidentiality, and do not blame them for their thoughts and actions. In the end, I would like to say, do not leave a suicidal person alone. Make sure you're there along with them. And suicide, it doesn't end the pain, it just passes it on to someone else. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, do let us know.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the interesting talk.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Javeria. If any participant has any question or any doubt, please feel free to unmute yourself, or you can type it out in the chat box as well.
Ma'am, I had a question. What
Yes,
should we,
please.
what should we do if a person who doesn't have any problems in life that may lead to suicidal thoughts or opting to suicide, but it is some medical condition like hormonal imbalance or thyrotoxicosis leading to anxiety and all. So how should we approach and talk them out of it? Because if we try talking to them and try to find out a reason behind their behind why they are feeling so low, but they don't have any problems in their life, so how should we talk them out of it?
I'll take that one, if that's okay. I think feeling suicidal, as I think you were mentioning, it could be either, usually we say that any kind of emotional problems are usually, unless there is a medical reason for it, as you mentioned, thyrotoxicosis and having palpitations secondary to thyrotoxicosis, which might not be, emotional reaction, but feeling suicidal usually most of the time is a combination of various factors. So it could be a biological reason, which is because of the neurotransmitters going up and down in your brain, or it could be and it could be various other things, but the best way to do is treat the cause. So if there is any medical reason, obviously you can tell them that you can treat the underlying medical condition, which can help them out. But the approach would be to ask them to seek help with a professional, because they need an assessment about what is happening. So sometimes it is and lots of times we get this, their life, somebody's life is actually like a dream life. They have no stressors, everybody, their family is very supportive, they're really smart and clever, and everyone wants to be in their shoes, but still that person is feeling suicidal, and everyone else can't make out about why they would feel suicidal. And it could be a plain biological reason, or sometimes there might be an underlying reason that no one else is aware of. So there might be something that they are going through which somebody else might not be aware of. So the best way would be to encourage them to see a professional, so that a thorough assessment can be made of whatever is happening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Naman, for that question. We have two questions, a lot of questions in the chat box. The first one is by Dr. Surendran. People who are very eloquent about prevention of committing suicide sometimes do it. Why is that so?
Not sure, but it could be that their preoccupation with suicide could, the way they are eloquent about or trying to stop or prevent suicide, or because as I was saying, there are people who are suicidal, who are constantly talking about it or researching about it or finding ways to do it. It could be a chicken and egg situation. Sometimes what happens is, that because they're feeling suicidal, they want to help others, and then they start talking a lot about it. Or sometimes it even happens that those who are working in it, because they read so much about it and research about it, it gets them low. So that is, for example, in mental health professionals as well, it is known that the burnout happens if you don't take good care of yourself, and that is the whole reason, because you're constantly working with emotional problems about the others. So if, for example, somebody who is an advocate about suicide prevention gets to see a lot of cases with suicide or people who are committing suicide, that negativity, if you're not very careful, could get you down as well. So it could be either of the two reasons why it happens.
Thank you, ma'am. There are a lot of questions in the chat box. I would like to take a few. Ms. Neva asks that suicidal tendencies mostly occur in a person. How can this be monitored and prevented if they reoccur in a person?
So I can take this question. So number one, it's about proper counseling to the patients. And usually patients, sometimes they have family history of suicide. And if they have a history of suicide attempt, then definitely we need to take it even more seriously, and proper counseling about how to, lifestyle modification, exercise. And when it comes to giving them medications, when they are on medications, they need to follow up right. Sometimes patients are not compliant with the medications at the same time, and then their psychiatric disorders, they can be stimulated when they are not taking it right. That can be one reason as well. Other than that, there are many reasons to commit suicide. So we need to take a proper history, what's going on in their lives. If there is someone they can talk to, there are always hotlines available where they can talk to. So it's all about counseling in the end and making them aware about the consequences. If that answered your question.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, there are a few more questions. Someone asks, what should we do if someone with chronic depression and anxiety issues refuses to take treatment or seek professional help?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, ma'am, the question is that what should we do if someone with clinical depression refuses to take professional help?
Okay, that's interesting. You can try talking to them, okay, and make sure that they are not harmful to themselves and to others at the same time. But you need to, they need to come and see the visit to doctor. Sorry, where is the, yeah. And if they are diagnosed clinically suicidal, then definitely they're following up with a doctor in that case, right?
Yes, ma'am. Some
Ma'am,
other
we have
questions?
a person who has raised her hand. So, Richa, you can go ahead.
Yes, I have this question. When people are suicidal, they usually turn to alcohol or drugs or any kind of addiction, right? So, as a friend, as a companion, how do I help him or her out of the addiction first out of the addiction, and how do I help him getting out of the thoughts of suicide?
So I can take that one. So it will have to be a combined effort about both the issues, because I think if you're saying that whoever it is, that person is using drugs and alcohol or illicit substances as part of their coping mechanism with either depression or suicidal thoughts, unless the underlying cause, as I was saying, it could be depression, it could be some stressors that they're having, unless that is dealt with, possibly for them to come out of the addiction is very difficult. So unless you treat their improve their emotional health or mental health issues, it's going to be difficult. But at the same time, if they are dependent on the drugs, then that is more of a de-addiction topic, but it will have to be done together. So in, for example, in rehabilitation, if somebody is a chronic addict, or somebody who might not be able to give up the drugs because they're dependent on that, and if they go rehab, what is done is counseling along with the de-addiction strategies are used together for the same reason. If you do one without the other, they might not be successful. If you don't treat the emotional problems, even if they come out of the addiction, the likelihood that they will relapse back into addiction is going to be there, unless you treat your the underlying emotional problems along with that.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
The next question that we have in the chat box is, do you think the decision to commit suicide is often very impulsive? Or is it more of a thought about decision, well planned?
It could be both. It could be both. Sometimes it could be impulsive, where something happens on the spur of the moment, where you have a fight with somebody, or you hear about some shocking news, or you think that and you don't actually think about it in the spur of the moment. You actually don't even sometimes it is accidental as well. You're like you're very angry, and you do something not intending to kill yourself, but you go too far. Or it could be purely impulsive, where you have as soon as you hear something, you feel that my life has collapsed, and you do something impulsively. And sometimes it is well planned. So the well planned ones are more related to know the underlying depression, as we are talking about, where they will research methods, where they will find foolproof methods, where I've had people researching very much in detail. They will go to the extent that they will send people out of the house. They will do it when there is the best likelihood that it will be successful. So suicides is, it can be both impulsive as well as very, very well planned in some cases.
Okay, ma'am. We have another participant who had raised their hand. I'm not able. Yes, Hannah.
Yes, my question is, can you please shed some light on postnatal depression and how to overcome it? Hello?
Yeah. So do you want me to take this, or Dr. Joeria is taking it?
You can go ahead, Dr. Sapna.
Yeah, so it depends on the severity of the postnatal depression. So there are, as we know, there could be postnatal blues that are very, very common, where people feel sad, and but it is short lasting. But if it goes into a phase of sustained kind of depression, then it depends on how severe it is, about whether it can be treated only with counseling, or it needs to be medication as well, or it could be a combination of both. So depending on the severity and the symptoms, and whether that because sometimes in postnatal depression, what happens is, along with the suicidal thoughts, they also have thoughts about harming the baby, and that then becomes almost like an emergency crisis, where it has to be treated very extensively. So it all depends on the what is the severity of the case, and will have to be treated according to that.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
The next question is, if someone now feels unsure about their education after completing the whole graduation, and it is pushing them on the edge every day, like having panic attacks, what should be done?
Okay, I can take this question. So, if you're feeling unsure about your education after completing the whole graduation, right? Is it because, if it's because of the lockdown and it's, and there is interrupted education, then that's a different story. But if you're worried about what your future holds, then, and you're having panic attacks because of that, because sometimes we all do have anxiety related to these issues, right? But if it's worsening, or you can't just do any other activities because of this reason, you need to visit a psychologist. Maybe they can counsel you on how to overcome these panic attacks. Anyhow, the best thing you can do is improve your lifestyles, have some lifestyle changes, exercise. This is the best thing how you can deal with it. We don't really directly start with medications whenever it comes to any psychological problem, but these kind of things, especially in a student's life, it's very common. So you need to just modify your lifestyles, and exercise will be a best option as well. Talk to someone, have a group where you can discuss about what your future plans are all about, and probably you guys can make a decision and come to conclusions.
Thank you, ma'am. There's another question. What should we do if suicidal person is continuously self-harming just to distract themselves? Is this a type of coping mechanism?
So non-suicidal self-injurious behavior, or deliberate self-harm, as we called it, could be a coping mechanism. For example, there are lots of times people try to harm themselves not with a suicidal intent, like they don't want to kill themselves, but it could be a way of communication. It could be if they feel frustrated and they feel that no one is listening to them, and no one is not attention seeking, but it's a way that they express themselves through it, express the distress that they're feeling, or the loss of control that they're feeling. It could be because of that. So yeah, non-suicidal self-harm injury could be anything. It could be a communication, it could be a distress signal, or sometimes it could also be that if it happens very frequently, it could lead up to something more serious. So it should always be taken seriously, even if it is like lots of people say that, oh, this person keeps doing it, like they're not going to do something serious, but that is not the case. Any kind of self-injurious behavior has to be taken seriously, because it is a way of that person trying to tell you something and communicate something. So yeah, it might not be suicidal at that point, but it could turn suicidal at a later date.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, there's another question relating to domestic violence, that a lot of people nowadays, especially men and women, they end up taking their lives only to escape violence that they face in their homes. How can we help them, and how can they help themselves get out of the situation?
Okay, so I'll talk about this. Domestic violence is something really serious, and I think we should also have a webinar or something for that as well. So now, especially because of the lockdown, everybody is at home, so the rates of domestic violence have increased. So the best thing to avoid, you need to tell it out to someone. You can't stay in the home and be abused, right? So you need to go, and I mean, there are a lot of hotlines available at the same time, and there are support groups, social groups available in every country. Even here, there is women and child health rights groups available here. So once you inform them, a psychologist will be appointed to you. Okay, and you need to basically leave the house. You can't stay in the house being abused every single day. So once you are basically, the main thing is you need to avoid the trigger. So if the trigger is domestic violence, which leads you to commit suicide, then avoid it. Just, I know it doesn't sound very, I mean, it sounds simple, but it isn't. But that's the ultimate thing. If you need to stop domestic violence, you need to raise your voice against it. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Uh, Ma'am, so how can the education system be changed in order to make students and children more sensitive towards this topic, and so that they have a better understanding and they know how to talk to other people? Is there a way that can be done?
Interesting question. We have slowly and surely, but surely, like, the education system is coming across, is realizing the impact of the stressors that it is having, and how it is important to have the conversations around mental health from an early age, so it doesn't reach the stigmatizing stage that, unfortunately, at least culturally, it has reached in Asian countries, or, like, India, definitely, where it is, till a few years ago, it was very, very taboo to talk about mental health, because it was never talked about in open. If somebody had mental illness in the family, it was almost like, okay, we are not talking about it, we are not talking about the relative is not got out of the house, and things like that. But now it has, schools are realizing the importance about talking about mental health, and sensitizing students from an early age about it. So, for example, we do a lot of workshops with students and in schools, talking about mental health issues, because most, if we realize that 75% of mental illnesses start, retrospectively, if you go back, they start at the age of 14. So that is exactly prior to that, where we have to start intervening. We have also come across we have developed a curriculum for schools, starting with the first standard to the 12th standard, talking about various topics about mental health, like how do you deal with bullying, how to be sensitive towards other children, how, eating disorders, other mental health issues, how to identify that and to help others. And we are trying to implement that in most of the schools in Mumbai. I think Delhi has already started implementing their own curriculum, mental health based curriculum. So I think more and more cities are realizing the importance, and using these mental health curriculums to be mandatory as part of their school. And I think it is extremely important, because the earlier you start with the sensitization towards mental health, the more supportive, as a I think, as a generation, we are going to grow.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your answer. I believe we have one last question. Is institutionalization helpful for someone who has attempted suicide several times, and especially in a time like this when institutionalization might not be available?
So institutionalization depends on, the intent. For example, sometimes it might be a useful tool to have in terms of, when you feel that this person is, you cannot guarantee the safety of this person living at home. They are constantly trying to kill themselves, or, there is carers exhaustion, where we've had parents staying awake whole night being with a young person who's trying to kill themselves, and because they are so strong and intent, and after a few days, the parents start feeling burnt out, they can't do it. So, it depends on, if you feel that this young person, or a person cannot be kept safe in the community, is when you look for institutionalization. The first option is always better to be treated in their own environment, and institutionalization should be the last resort, because ultimately it is, you're going to keep them safe for a period of time, and that does help, as I said, in cases where you feel that it's impossible to keep this person safe, because at the end of the day you're trying to save a life, and any which ways you have to save it. But once they come back, the harsh realities are not going to go away. So whatever stressors they're facing, they are still going to be facing them when they come home. So the best way is to treat in the community. In case there is absolutely no option, no support available, or the support is dwindling, then institutionalization might be the only option.
Thank you,
And
ma'am.
even times, I think they mentioned about how difficult it is to get admission. There will be quite a few. I understand that, even in Mumbai, for example, some of the government hospitals have been converted into COVID hospitals. So they're not admitting mental health clients. So I know that it is, as I said, there is a crisis somewhere where, the beds are not that easily available. But there will always be a way of institutionalization in case it is absolutely mandatory.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to request the participants to please fill the feedback form. The link has been posted in the chat box. And also the free therapy cards would be mailed, and they are provided by Student Against COVID's Domestic Violence Team and Women's Health Team in alliance with Self and Beyond and Foundation. So we would be giving those as well. Now I think we would be moving on to the survey that was posted, and we would be discussing the responses that we had got on that.
Arushi, can you please share your screen?
Yes, I'll just share it. Yeah, is it visible?
Yes. So we had conducted a survey to understand how many people know the following questions. We had given a form, Google form, and a lot of students had filled this out. We'll just quickly go through this. So Arushi, would you please explain the whole thing? We also have a pie chart which shows the statistics.
Some of the most commonly asked questions were included in the survey, and the responses that we got were as follows, like how do we know that someone might be suicidal? So most of the people thought that it is because of change in behavior, hopelessness, or losing interest, while very few people thought that it could lead to self-harm. And moving on to these are the warning signs that people have identified that are really, associated with suicide. Some of the questions that can be worrying people, and if we can ask people who are in a bad state of mental health, are as follows: that if they would like to talk, if they would like to share what they are going through, and what is it that is troubling them. Also being observant of small changes in their behavior patterns, and noticing if they are trying to isolate themselves from any kind of activities, social activities, or even change in their normal routines. And that is how we could know that if someone is dealing with a mental issue and they would like to discuss it, but they might be hesitant. Mahima, do you want to take over the next question?
Okay. So the next was, what do you do? For example, someone says, my child just said, I've thought about taking all the medicines in the cabinet. So we had a varied response. So some of them did not know what to do. Some of them said, okay, we should counsel them. And some even said that they should remove all the medicines from the cabinet so that the children don't harm themselves. Moving on to the next question. Yes. So this is all the, so overall, the first question was, which of the following will definitely let you know that a person is depressed? So we have 45.8% of people who answered all of the above. And the options were loss of appetite, increased sleep timing, individual does not look himself, and signs can vary from person to person. And 44.4% said signs can vary from person to person. Then we had, what would you prefer saying to a depressed individual? So maximum response that we got was, you can confide in me and this is the safe space to talk. And very less people said, I know you just want attention. So I think we have students who are well informed. And then the next question was, if a person seems trouble, is it safe to ask if they are thinking about hurting themselves or can increase the danger of suicide? So we have 36.1% and 36.1%, half of them said yes and half of them said, I don't know. And a very few population, 27.8%, which is comparable, said no. So this is, I think, a debatable question, and Dr. Sapna answered that in her presentation as well. And next was, if you ask someone, have you thought about hurting yourself, and the answer is yes, should you believe the answer? So 76.4% of people said yes. The next was, who is at a greater risk of suicide? 51.4% of them said people who are experiencing depression. 31.9% said anybody in general. So, and yes, so this was basically the survey that was conducted. Dr. Sapna and Dr. Javeria, do you have any insights on this survey, or do you, what is the perception of the students, the knowledge that they have, and should it be more, or is it adequate? Any comments on the survey?
So when I first saw the results, I was actually happy to see that a lot of people knew about the signs of the depression. How would you actually see a patient undergoing, suicidal thoughts? Also, the fact that how you would approach. So there are good statements what you've written down. Just that a lot of suicides not necessarily do happen because of depression. It's mainly, if they have family history of underlying psychiatric disorders, or also if they have attempted previously, then there's more chance that they're going to attempt it again. But depression obviously will be definitely a contributing factor. But apart from that, there are many other factors which can cause suicide. But overall, I liked the feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I agree. I agree with Dr. Juveria that, overall it did seem that people were quite sensitive towards mental health and knew how to approach. There were obviously a few questions which hopefully after today's sessions have cleared some of the doubts that people may have had about how to, especially about how to approach people with suicide or some of the misconceptions that they might have. But I think overall, it seemed that they were well aware of what can be done and what should be done at least.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. And
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you to both the speakers for the informative talk that we had today.
Good evening, Dr. Sapna and Dr. Javeria. I would just like to thank the both of y'all for helping us gain knowledge about this important topic of suicide prevention, and your advice, especially about exercising daily and taking up more healthy habits, will definitely be incorporated by many of the participants, or so I hope. And once again, thank you so much for joining us and enlightening us about such an important topic, especially during this pandemic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure being here.
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you to all the participants for joining us, and thank you for patiently listening. And this will be posted on the Students Against COVID's YouTube account as well. So anybody who's missed it out, you can tell your friends to watch it up over there. And thank you so much, Dr. Sapna, Dr. Javeria, for joining us today. It was a
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. It was really amazing to be here. Thank you all. Thank you for attending. Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much.